Hey guys, so this issue is very near and dear to my heart because I have suffered with depression and I feel like almost everyone has to some degree. But for me, it's felt like ever since I reached the age of 9 or 10, like I've been running from a tiger that's been perpetually chasing me. And there's been times, there's also like flip sides of it. Like I'd have seasonal depression sometimes and then incredible like inspiration, creativity. So ever since I can remember basically having sort of an adult mind aside from that like free stage of childhood, it's felt like I have been trying to use my intelligence mostly to like stay away from this tiger. And depression, I have found, as going into this, is not at all what I thought it was. And so, as we open our mind and we don't just immediately resist it, we want to get really curious about what it is. So, as I said in previous videos, I'm really, really still obsessed with, I don't even know how to say it, etymology and like the roots of words and where they came from. So I looked up where the history of the word depression. And so it was used in around the year 1400 as a measurement for how far below the horizon a star was. So a star that the Earth wasn't at the right angle for you to see from the angle you were at, it measured how far away it was. And it's so funny because like nature has been like my biggest, for me, my biggest therapy. And so I saw this connection where originally it was a word talking about nature, and I saw this connection with some other words that had horrible connotations. So I looked up the word tragedy, and tragedy means goat song. And goats are a fascinating creature and a very symbolic creature for like the devil, which symbolizes the ultimate suffering, right? So it's such a silly thing. And it actually triggered a funny memory because I remember being kind of shocked that the first thing that came out of my mouth when my son was born was, "Oh, he sounds like a goat." And I was like, my brain wasn't working quite right, but that was the first thing out of my mouth. And and then like Nisargadatta Maharaj talking about how birth is a tragedy. And that's, one way of looking at it. Birth is still a beautiful thing. Like we come here manifest, but at the same time you can see like when we think we're born, when we so quickly think that there's something there that can be lost. And so we gloss over and cover over the true gift that life is. And the other word was tragedy, a disaster. And disaster, so aster means star, and asters are like wild asters are one of my favorite flowers. They just grow all over the place around here, and in the fall they're just gorgeous. And so they're named after stars because they're kind of star shaped. So disaster means against the stars or against the flower. And it's funny, if you look at the word flower, it's spelled like flow or and so Abraham Hicks has this incredible analogy. How many times do I say that in these videos? That like it's like you can't turn the river off. This isn't Disneyland. You can't turn the flow of energy off. So we have these blockages. And when like different spiritual systems, you have chakras and it's all about energy and it's all about flow. So you can't turn this off, but you have to align with it. Like you have to be with it. And so when we put these certain blockages in the way, what we push on them. So depression, repression, impression is something that we enforce on something. And so if you stop pushing yourself down you can, it just goes back. The flow just goes back. And so Abraham Hicks actually teaches probably how to deal with depression the best of any single teacher I've ever heard of. And yet most people will disregard her because they think that she is teaching people how to be rich, when really there's absolutely no resistance to any, or no judgment to any one person's desire. And it's funny because when I first accepted the law of attraction and wrote down my desires, one of my biggest desires was to move away from where I live now. And what ended up happening is I had this incredible like mystical connection where I live was revealed to me. And it started as a desire to like move away. And so it's very funny how your desires, we repress our desires and how our desires come out. And and by repressing them, we hold ourselves away from who we truly are. And there was a quote I recently saw that I absolutely loved that said, it wasn't a quote by anyone famous or anything, it was just a comment someone made. And they said, "This is either a fairy tale or a death trap." And I'm like, yeah, actually, it's both. It's a tragedy that you're born, and yet it's an absolute gift because this is truly a fairy tale, and it's whatever you make of it. You have the power to turn it into this amazing thing. And when you look at the origins of these words that have such are so heavy and have such a weight, like you're pressing on, they literally mean to press down. And they have these like rooted in nature sort of like stars or blocking the light out and light being energy, or these sort of like spiritual or fairy tale-esque meanings. I just love noticing stuff like that. And it's all comes out of curiosity. When you can really, really get curious about depression and your feelings. And this also, accepting this will go so far when you realize that depression is just this amazing signal to be aware of something. It's that something wants attention. And so when we can give it that sort of meditative attention that isn't a resistant attention and isn't an I have to fix you attention, then beautiful things can come to us, beautiful discoveries, just in that sort of curiosity and awareness and the freedom of letting it be. And so you'll notice that there's this incredible link with spirituality and depression. And it's this desire, it's a powerful desire to see through, and it's a powerful intuition that something isn't quite right. And what isn't quite right, the amazing thing about that is that it is within our power to see. It is completely within our power. And while it may seem like there are circumstances beyond our control, we are more powerful, and more connected than we can ever know. And this is a fairy tale, and it's born out of a beautiful creative impulse. And you're never not loved, truly. It is so hard to like communicate this feeling, but you're truly never not loved. And so when you can give that own loving attention to your own dissatisfaction and realize that it is a desire to go deeper, to see through something, to drop some beliefs that are what's behind the pressing down, it's it's an amazing thing. And to end with, so many people sometimes they kind of write off that this is about self-care. So we're still physical beings. And so self-care and health are incredibly tied to how you feel. And so sometimes a fix for depression is to fix your diet or your exercise. And for me, I found one incredible key thing is to take vitamin D and also get light exposure. I don't really do well with the artificial sunlight replacements, but I'm trying those again this winter. But I actually like getting out in nature is just really, really powerful for me. Also, if you are taking vitamin D, in order to properly absorb that, most people don't tell you this, but in order to properly absorb it, you also need vitamin A and vitamin K. So vitamin A, a good thing to remember is eat an orange vegetable like sweet potatoes or carrots. And vitamin K is like a green vegetable or kale. And so also when you're getting that fiber in your diet and you're getting those vitamins, and other vitamins help the absorption of other vitamins, you need to feed yourself well. And I over time I've noticed this huge link between like sugar or processed food or like low quality fats and just depression and feeling awful. So if you're not feeding yourself right, you just, that energy flow, that physical energy flow, it just doesn't work. The other thing, speaking of energy flow, is that like we are creation, we are creators. So make sure that you're expressing yourself in some way, whether it's writing or whatever creative means. And so in schools, we've often kind of failed kids in this way, that art was kind of on the sidelines and we're doing way better than we were when I was really little. But it's a huge part of happiness, and it's a huge part of your actual like success later on, I believe. And so you get creative, like make time for that, whether it's music or visual art or writing or anything, just, try it. And one thing, if you don't know a way to start, one thing you can do is just appreciate other art, and often you'll get inspiration from that. And the other thing I've noticed with depression that I make sure I have checked off is connection with people. So I'm not a real social person. I've been like a hermit for most of my life, and I'm still pretty much a hermit. But I found this kind of key where I like just normal interaction with people. Just like it could be just like picking my kids up or going into a store or something like that. It really gives you a boost and makes you feel like you're part of a community. And it's such a tiny thing that we don't appreciate, that even if you don't have like a bunch of close family members and close friends who you speak to all the time, that can make a huge difference. And I know it's hard with the pandemic right now, but if you can, and especially in the future, just take note of that. And it's actually been studied in blue zones too, that just having like kind of casual, accidental interactions with people goes a big way to making people happier and less stressed and live longer. So again, depression is just, it's not what you think it is. And I have nothing against using other resources for it, but the main thing is just to get really, really curious, and we so quickly, it's something that we want to get rid of, that we don't go into curiosity. And when you're in that place of depression, it's so tricky to get out of, because it's like every thought follows the next. And you know how this is basically the law of attraction. It's how your thoughts work. So when you get on a negative spiel, even something that you were really excited about before, it just you just can't get there. And so just like turning a computer off when you open too many tabs and the thing is just running super slow, it's a lot more fast to just turn the computer off and turn it back on again. Just like that, meditation and dropping the thought, if you can, like whatever is the least resistance way, if it's listening to music, getting out in nature, find the things that really work for you and do them and put into practice other things like meditation or getting exercise, getting out every day. Just make those a habit so you don't even have to think about it. And one of the kind of like caveats about spiritual work is that as you do these things, as you become better with diet and better with exercise and better with meditation, you become more and more sensitive to things, and you become more and more sensitive to when you get depressed. And there's this sort of feeling that I sense going around in the spiritual community that's like, well, if you get depressed, then you're sort of a spiritual failure because you're not liberated yet or something. But really, it's a it's truly a gift. Like, I know it's super hard to see that, and all you need to do is to get, like, somehow get yourself to the place of curiosity or just awareness of it. And when you do, the gift there can be seen through.